Acción Empresarial y Gerencia para Todos Online está realizando aquí en la Universidad de Harvard un seguimiento al programa de negociación de Cambridge International Consulting.
Orren tiene más de 30 años trabajando el tema de la persuasión y se ha convertido en una referencia obligada en academias del mundo entero, en empresas, porque sus planteamientos sobre el tema de la persuasión realmente han introducido una visión novedosa de esta búsqueda permanente que tenemos todos nosotros, que es lograr persuadir a los demás. Qué cosa tan grata que alguien haga lo que uno quiere que haga de una manera ética, sin manipulaciones, sin presiones de ningún tipo. Cómo lograr que los demás actúen según uno desea que actúen o piensen como uno desea que actúen o piensen. Bueno, esas son algunas de las claves que Orren durante esta jornada fantástica del día de hoy nos va a detallar en los principios básicos que están por detrás de la persuasión y que han sido realmente el deleite de las personas que han estado en esta misma sala y en otros lugares del mundo escuchando las propuestas de Orren. Quiero pedir primero que nada que Gary se ponga aquí a mi lado y además quiero que lo recibamos con un aplauso muy cariñoso. Que el aplauso que le han dado se lo ha merecido y el que le den al final del día va a ser muchísimo más estruendoso que el de esta mañana. Así que muchísimas gracias y nos dejo ustedes con Orren.
Thank you very, very much, Alvaro, for that very, very kind and generous introduction. It is a pleasure for me to be here with you. It's a pleasure for me to be reunited with my friends in CIC, with Alberto, with Alvaro, with Eduardo, with Samuel. It is one of my greatest pleasures is working with this organization. We're going to have a good time today. I hope it's not just a good time, we'll also do some serious learning, I hope. Persuasion. That's the subject that we're going to be talking together about today. Persuasion. How is it that we can most effectively convince other people to change their attitudes or change their behavior voluntarily, willingly, to bring their ideas and their behavior in line with our cherished goals? I don't think that I need to persuade a group of people like yourselves who are experienced that persuasion lies at the very heart of what you and I do each and every day. Sir Bertrand Russell, and Sir Russell was fascinated with the subject of persuasion, and so he wrote about it and thought about it, and he made the claim that what is distinctive, what is basically distinctive for human beings, what really separates us from non-humans is our capacity to persuade or be persuaded. Wow. That's a very lofty, big claim for persuasion. I've been involved with persuasion and studying it and using it for 25, 30 years or more, at least. Maybe it sounds better if I say for the last quarter century. For the last quarter century, I've been pursuing this beast persuasion, and I'm not sure I would subscribe to such a lofty claim as this, as Russell does. But I'll tell you something, I will subscribe to a sufficiently lofty claim, and that is that persuasion is the key to leadership. It's the key to leadership, to this elusive thing, leadership, that we all try to acquire and use in our work, in our own spheres of influence, in your office, to be a leader, not just a manager, but to be a leader. It's one thing to try to lead people who agree with us. That can be difficult. That can be very difficult, even to lead people who agree with us. But to lead people who are skeptical about your views, who are indifferent to your views, who are downright opposed to your views, and that's what persuasion is about. That's the key to leadership that really unlocks the challenge. Now, as part of this adventure for the last quarter century, I've tried to identify the top principles of effective persuasion, kind of hit parade, the top principles of effective persuasion, and basically to make it onto this hit parade list of the top principles and techniques of persuasion, I have extracted these principles from the behavioral science research literature, from social psychology, from work in political science, from communications theory. There are studies, systematic, rigorous studies behind every one of these principles. You can't just put something on the list and claim to you because I think it's right that it belongs there. There are very systematic, lots of serious research that justify something being put on this list. We'll talk about some of those studies as we go along. But this list of the top principles of persuasion, and incidentally, all the slides, almost, that I'm going to be talking about today are in your notebook that you have, that CIC has prepared for you. So they're all, most of them are in there. So these top 10 principles are going to be, this is going to be the spine of our conversation today. Let me say something about these principles as we get started. These principles, every one of them, is absolutely self-evident. They're absolutely self-evident. You know them all already. Tell me, does this stuff work? I got too many other interesting things I could spend my time on than this if it doesn't work. Does it really deliver? Does it have take-home value? And which principles do you like best? Under what situations do you like that principle versus that principle? So, and the verdict that comes back from my students, I have thousands of students now all around the world, is, yes, this stuff works. I'm a much more persuasive person. I would say somewhere between many and most, kind of in that area. Between many and most of my students say they are much more persuasive. Stuff really works. Stuff really works. And so our agenda today is really straightforward. We're going to first talk about these principles, and in addition to 10 principles, I want to share with you 2 or 3 frameworks, what I call frameworks of persuasion, that you can use on the night before your big meeting, on the day before you start to make your critical memo,
frameworks for organizing your thinking about your project, ways to kind of organize the information you have before you. I call those frameworks. We'll start talking about one in a minute. So 1 or 2 or 3 frameworks and 10 principles that we have. Those are the tools that I'm going to share with you today and we're going to talk about. We'll talk about those principles and frameworks, define them, do some exercises, see some videos about them, get a common vocabulary and language about it. We may not talk about all 10 principles, depends on how we want to use our time in our conversation, but we'll talk about the most important ones. And then after we do that, in the afternoon, later in the afternoon, we're then going to take a case, our Café Español case, so that to give you an opportunity to use and apply the principles yourself, to get some practice in that, okay? This is an ambitious agenda, frankly, for 10 principles, 2 or 3 frameworks, an exercise. It's an ambitious agenda for us for today. My dad used to say to me, Gary, if you need 8 hours sleep, and there's only 4 hours left in the night, you've got to sleep fast. So that's our challenge. We have to sleep fast. Or maybe, I hope we don't literally sleep. Although it's nice and cozy and warm in here, there's not too many windows. We'll try not to live. Maybe a better metaphor is we have miles to go before we sleep, from the poet Robert Frost. Miles to go before we sleep. Let me share with you, I said we have frameworks. One of the frameworks, and I'm going to say very briefly about this now, and then we'll come back and talk about it over the course of today. Really what we're interested in is influence. That's the ultimate thing we're interested in. Influencing people. What is influence? Getting somebody to do something they wouldn't otherwise do. That's a common sense definition of influence, and I think an accurate one. Getting somebody to do something that they wouldn't otherwise do. That is influencing them. That is leading them. I think influence and leading are the same things. The people are moving in this direction, and undisturbed, they'll just keep moving in that direction, and you want them to go in that direction. We want to get them to do something that they otherwise wouldn't do. And in the world, we basically have 3 ways to do that. 3 ways to influence. That's all. 3 main ways to get people to do something they wouldn't otherwise do. First, we can do, I call them the 3 Ps for shorthand. The 3 Ps of influence. First, we can use what I call power. We order people. We command them. We assert our views. That's a mild form of power. We say, we come up with what we think is the right answer, and we assert it. We announce it. It's a mild form of kind of ordering. I got the right idea. Listen to me. Right? We command. We order. We assert. Maybe we even coerce people. Threaten people. It takes on a darker kind of complexion. Right? This is a very basic tool of influence to try to get people to do what they wouldn't otherwise do. We need it in our toolkit. We tend to use it too much, but it's important to have there. You know, if God forbid a fire were to break out in this room, I wouldn't try to persuade you to leave. It's not a time for persuasion. It's a time for power, for order, command. Okay? But that's only one tool that we could pull out of the toolkit. A second way we influence people is not to say, do it because I say so. That's what order is, and command, and power. Do it because I say so. Another way is we negotiate with people. One of the themes of this week. We negotiate with people. Incidentally, I did not have a very good P word to begin with P. I used to call this push-pull for a negotiation, a push-pull. Negotiations, back and forth, bargaining, push-pull. It wasn't very good P, I thought. And one day a student like yourself, in one of my seminars, said, Professor Orren, I've got an alternative idea for you, and suggested P negotiation, but really, in English, it's where the P begins the word, but it's a silent P, like the word pneumonia, right? So, pneumonia has a P at the beginning, pneumonia, the disease pneumonia, but you don't say the P, it's silent. Or the word psychology. We need those resources to bargain and exchange. With persuasion, it's because of what's in your head. Your own self-motivating impulse leads you to change your attitude or behavior. And that will sustain your behavior over time better if we can persuade you. You convince yourself. You voluntarily do it. But we can't always persuade, and sometimes we need to negotiate, and sometimes we need to use power and order, and sometimes we use 2 of them in one project, and sometimes we use 3 of them. We're going to be talking about, but we got these 3. This is a framework I want you to put in your pocket. This is not an academic talk. This is a wow. I want us to remember this is a big wow. I want us to say all together wow. We're going to say it together, okay? 1, 2, 3. Wow. This is a wow. Behavioral science films never seen it so strong. Let's say you've got 7 points in your message. Speaking, your conversation, a speech, a memo, internet message, whatever channel. Let's say you have 7. And I don't pick that number 7 by accident. People who are logos-oriented, like you and me, on average, have 7 points in our messages. 7 main arguments, 7 main points. Which is, the median is 7, which is interesting. That means that half of the time we have more than 7. Okay. So let's say you have 7. It's not as if the audience you're talking to remembers the first 3 pretty well,